or they have no issue actually with dealing with sensitive data for children in this way, it's really quite worrying.
Yeah, it's shocking. Anjem, thank you. Anjem Pierbakos there following that story for us here on Sky News. Let's bring in Graham Stewart from the cybersecurity firm Checkpoint, who joins us now. Graham, I just said there to Anjem that I'm shocked that a chain of nurseries has been targeted. Am I a little bit naive in that?
No, I've been involved in cybersecurity for 25 years, and this is the most depressing day, I think, of my job. Since I've been doing this, I've seen hundreds, probably thousands of cyber attacks over the years, and helped companies and organisations recover from them. This is just indefensible. It's an appalling an attack, and it just shows, as your correspondent was talking about, just frankly a lack of ethics and morals, and to go after children's data. Yeah, I'm afraid this is a new low.
Yeah, Graham, we understand that a sample of the data stolen has appeared on the dark web, essentially the hackers saying to the nursery group and the wider world, look at what we can do if you don't comply with our ransom demands. In terms of that information, Anjem, our correspondent, has been to nursery, spoken to parents who at the moment are quite relaxed about it. But some of that data, very personal, photographs of children from their nursery setting on the dark web as well. Should parents be a little bit more concerned?
I think there's two elements to this. So there's the specific concerns around the parents, and they'll be using that presentation of that information as part of their extortion attempt on the nursery group. There's another bit to this where they'll have scraped a load of information, and they're claiming up to 8,000 individuals' details. That information gets sold on the dark web for secondary attack, and I'll give you an example of how that works out. Everybody here watching will have had a text message purporting to be from a parcel delivery company, from Amazon, from Disney, saying, oh, your direct debit has failed, you've got a parking notice, you need to give HMRC some money. Those secondary attacks come from scrapes of data that have been sold on the dark web for these kind of mass mailings, mass marketing, in sort of evil mass marketing attempts. And what they'll do is they'll use that data. So you've got two things going on here. You've got the secondary data, the secondary attacks being used from these data scrapes, and that's bad. But then what you've also got is the indefensible use of children's information to try and extort it from the nursery. And those examples are what they're going to use as a leverage to get the organisation to try and pay up.
Yeah, cyber attacks, I feel like I'm talking about them a lot recently on the news, but it tends to be, bigger companies, whether it's M&S, Jaguar Land Rover, to name just a couple of recent examples. And they are big multinational companies with lots of money. You would imagine, I mean, maybe it's been found not to be the case, but they would have the most robust sort of security system when it comes to information online. A nursery group, what kind of protection would they have had? And, what can they do to protect themselves? Because in the grand scheme of companies, they're probably quite small fry, and is protection expensive?
So the way to look at this, we have what we call the magic triangle within cybersecurity, or the golden triangle, which is people, process, technology. So an organisation like Checkpoint and other organisations will supply technology. It's down to the individual organisations how that's deployed and the processes that they use to build their business around it, and then for the people to be trained. And the problem with an organisation that doesn't have a lot of money, that's frankly focused on delivering nursery care, is they'll do the very best that they can with what they have. And there's only so much that you can do if you're an organisation like that. I was in Cardiff last week and talking to the head of the Cyber Resilience Centre there, and he spends his entire time talking to businesses, mostly small businesses, really hammering home this idea that it's not just about the technology, it's about how you train your people, how you get them to look for suspicious goings on, and making sure that your processes back this up. So it is possible to do it, but it really needs a focus from the organisation to make sure that they've got the people, process and technology in place to enable them to operate safely.
Yeah, a really interesting sector for hackers to focus on. They clearly don't watch Sky News because, you know, we talk about nursery fees and the margins they operate under at the moment. They're not awash with cash. So in that respect, it's an interesting target to go for a ransom. And they've been very clear that it's about the money. And, you know, we were touching on it there before, their argument, their sort of moral argument. Well, we've given you what they've called a pen test, so you should pay up for that at least. What is a pen test? And what is this argument they've come up with?
Well, this is victim washing. Victim shaming. This is an absolute nonsense. So a pen test is where you would get an organisation to test your cybersecurity defences, and it can extend beyond that. So you have physical pen testing where you have someone tries to break in, kind of sort of blag their way through the front door or through security. Pen testing in a cybersecurity context is about testing your systems to the point where they fail. It's a well-established industry. For them to describe what they've done as a pen test and effectively charge the nursery for the benefit of their skills and their expertise is laughable, and it's an absolute disgrace, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Well, Graham, stay with us because we've got another story from the digital world that I'd be interested to get your thoughts on. This is the government today set to unveil plans as soon as tomorrow, we understand, for a new digital ID system. This is all in a bid to tackle illegal migration. The Prime Minister is expected to announce this scheme at some point tomorrow, and he believes that the so-called Brit card will help stop illegal immigrants from finding work. Our political correspondent Maria Aurora has the latest from Westminster.
The government looks set to announce a mandatory ID card system. Now, this would be a digital ID, a Brit card, and it would be mandatory for all adults in the UK. The idea behind it is, first of all, to make it easier for employers and landlords to essentially check someone's immigration status, but also this is about tackling illegal migration. We've had a situation where under Keir Starmer and under a Labour government, small boats crossings are at a record high. And so the government is now having to think about maybe being a bit more creative, a bit more radical about how to reduce small boats crossings. And so digital ID cards have come up. Now, this is because other countries like France, for instance, have often and for many years criticised the UK for having a pull factor for illegal working. And what nations like France say is that because we here in the UK don't have ID cards the way they do in France, for instance, it allows people to work in the kind of the black market, the black economy, as it were, and work illegally more easily. The difficulty is that actually Labour did try to do this once before under Tony Blair. It was unsuccessful. But also, interestingly, in July of 2024, the then Home Secretary Yvette Cooper actually said to journalists, it's not in our manifesto, it's not our approach. Fast forward 14 months, and clearly Keir Starmer has had a change of heart. The difficulty for Keir Starmer in getting this legislation through will be the arguments for civil liberties. There is civil liberties campaigners who say that this is going to create a kind of checkpoint society here in the UK, but also that it will fundamentally change the relationship between the population and the state. And it's not just them. The Lib Dems, the Greens and the Reform UK Party have all said that they are absolutely against this.
Well, civil liberty is one concern, but cybersecurity is another. Graham's still with us. Graham Stewart from cybersecurity firm Checkpoint. Graham, you'll be well aware of these plans that the government plan to announce tomorrow. And given what we were just talking about with this chain of nurseries hack, I mean, every UK adult, their personal information, passport details, driving licence, stored on one platform. Can that be done safely?
So the answer is yes. However, what you do, if you think about this, if you increase the amount of information that you're holding in a central space, you're increasing what's called the attack surface. So the opportunity for people to break into it, the opportunity for people to breach it. Now, there's lots of technical ways you can kind of split the information up and have it in different areas. But fundamentally, the cybersecurity on this is absolutely key. There's lots of societies in the world that are almost exclusively digital. So the Estonian government is 99% run on a sort of digital ID card scheme. You've got lots of countries around the world that do this. The difficulty you've got with this is if you'd have talked about this 3 months ago, most people wouldn't really understand. Most people wouldn't be bothered because the cyber attacks were just the preserve of us geeks. And actually what's happened now is this has moved into the mainstream. I'll give you an example of one that went wrong and one of the problems that government has here. The Legal Aid Board was hacked in May. And the biggest news item that day, when it happened, when that news broke, 200,000 people's details were stolen. The biggest news item that day was Gary Lineker leaving Match of the Day. Your problem you've got here is that trust is absolutely important and absolutely the keystone of this. People have to trust the system. And so government need to be able to demonstrate that they've got their cybersecurity house in order and that they can be trusted to do this. And there's many things you can do, and there's lots of different technologies you can deploy. But fundamentally, this is based on trust. And I absolutely would like to see government illustrate to industry and also to the public at large how they intend securing this, because the news landscape has changed on this, and people are far more aware. This nursery hack, the M&S, the Co-op, the airlines at the weekend. This is now front and centre in people's minds, and they absolutely need to get that trust on board, or it just won't work.
Listen, Graham, been really interesting to talk to you. You know, cyber hacking and cybersecurity, the two stories leading our news agenda this evening. As you said, these stories more and more prevalent, people more aware. I'm sure we will speak again on that note. Graham Stewart there, Head of Public Sector, Head of the Public Sector Security at Checkpoint Software Technologies. Really good to talk to you tonight. Thank you.